What exactly is a true calling and how on earth do we find it? Join me, Annabelle Beckwith, as I speak to numerous women who are on that very journey and from whom we can all learn how to find our own true calling. From growing up in a war zone to becoming an Emmy Award winner, a best-selling author and a racing car driver. My guest today is Martina Kwan. What a powerhouse this lady is. And yet, as with all my guests, the journey hasn't always been straightforward. Growing up in war-torn Beirut, she was playing with Barbie dolls and dreaming about a better future. And actually from those humble beginnings, Martina learnt and can teach us all some really powerful lessons about visualization and how this fits into her true calling. Let's hear her remarkable story now. Welcome, Martina Kwan, who is our guest today on True Calling. Now, Martina is a best-selling author. She's a Telly and Emmy Award winner. She is the mum of 2 girls. She is a racing driver. What can this woman not do? And yet, like all of my guests, it didn't all happen overnight. And it didn't all happen by accident. So we are going to really learn from Martina's experience, her insights, and her story today. Martina, welcome. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us who you are and how you got to where you are today. Tell us your story.
Hi, Annabelle. First of all, thank you so much for having me as a guest. I love what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, my story, gosh, where do we begin? I'm half Chinese and half German, born in Hong Kong, and at the age of 8, we moved to Beirut, Lebanon. And Beirut was this amazing place. It was called the Paris of the Middle East, and
Yes.
they had beach clubs, and then you could go skiing, 1 hour behind you, kind of like Chile. You could go to the beach and to go skiing. But the Civil War started about 6 months after we moved there. And our apartment was in Ras, Beirut, which was about 2.5 miles from the stronghold of the war. So every night we would have, we would start hearing machine guns in the distance, and they would start getting louder and louder. And at that point, I would get so scared, I would climb out of my bed and into my sister's bed. I was 8 and she was 10. And the fighting would continue, and they would have rockets being shot off and bombs, and then the explosions. And the rockets, I think, were what scared me the most, because when they shot them off, it was this hissing sound, and you wouldn't know where it would land or whether we would be next. So
Oh, good gracious.
they would have the bomb sirens, and we would go to and huddle in our corridor. All the neighbors would come down to our ground floor apartment. So the nights were terrifying, but what I did during the day to overcome the fear is I had many different Barbie dolls and Ken Barbie dolls and horses and horse stables, and I would dream about riding in a peaceful forest far away. And so every day I would that was my favorite activity, just daydreaming with the Barbies and, playing with them. And a few years later, we left as refugees through gun checkpoints to Beirut International Airport. And we moved to Germany, which is my mom's hometown of Hamburg. And I found myself riding in that exact same forest that I dreamed about.
That's just sent chills down my spine, actually. Whoa. Yeah.
And what was so powerful about that is, whether you call it daydreaming or visualization, is that if let's say there's a child or a teenager who has parents that are fighting, you can daydream about something that is better. Yeah. I'm a huge believer in positive thinking, and it's really important if you wake up on the wrong side of the bed to change the mindset to positive. But what I really learned about that daydreaming about the forest riding and then actually doing it was that I used that throughout my life. So I used it to, once I left university, I wanted to work for the best accounting firms in the world. I worked for KPMG and Pricewaterhouse. And then I wanted to earn Telly and Emmy awards, and I did through my 3D animation company. And then I had a furniture, award-winning furniture design company. We manufactured overseas, and I visualized winning those awards and won 9 furniture design awards.
Wow.
And then finally, also, visualizing wanting to have kids at a certain time. And, I was a real workaholic and waited till rather late, visualized having them, and boom, I had 2. So, and then of course, after I turned 50, I decided to become a race car driver, and
As you do.
and became a 3-time champion.
Yeah.
So visualization, it really, really does help.
Martina, that's absolutely astonishing, because I think very few of our audience can have, myself including, can have any comprehension of how terrifying that must be for an adult, let alone a child, to be in a war zone and to not know whether you're next, and to hear missiles flying overhead. And what strikes me, one of the many things that strikes me as remarkable about your story, is that you visualized as a child, and then years later found yourself riding in this peaceful forest in Germany. What was it? And the reason I'm asking this question is I think quite lots of, most kids daydream about this, that, and the other, and then we kind of grow out of it. Whereas you kind of daydreamed and thought, here, hang on a minute. And it kind of translated from a childish thing that you would just do to fantasize to something that has actually become a pivotal part of your success story and your career. Is it possible to define why that is?
You just struck a chord when you said just riding on a horse actually has been pivotal in my life in another instance. And that was when I was 50 and I was unhappily married, and I went to Dubai and Abu Dhabi 4 times in 2016 to do business and to do trade shows. And on my final visit in September of 2016, I went to Dubai, the trade show ready, the containers hadn't been unloaded, and I was in my hotel room wondering, what do I even do? Because as women, especially in our 40s and later, we're always taking care of everyone else's needs but our own.
Yep.
And we forget about our own desires, passions, joys. So I laid there in the hotel, closed my eyes, and I said, what is something that you've always loved to do throughout your life? Horseback ride. So I took a taxi out to the desert, and I rode an Arabian horse in the Arabian desert.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I said enough is enough with my marriage and decided to become a race car driver. So it's actually been very symbolic for me, riding a horse.
How interesting. And it's the phrase that came to mind as you were saying that is like your happy place. That's a place where you feel, I'm taking a wild guess, that's where you feel completely yourself, completely free. You're in touch with nature. You're in touch with the horse. You're connected with the horse. Yeah. There's a real sense of connectedness to everything that's around you, rather than being like stuck in your head and trying to work things out logically. And I think it's an interesting question for us all to consider, is like, what's that thing for us? What is the thing that takes us out of ourselves and connects us to the universe, connects us to nature and so on? And then at that point you said, you thought, right, enough is enough. And a new vista opened up to you. I'm going to backpedal a little bit, because you do mention it in quite a blasé way. This I was thinking she's a Renaissance woman, because it's like you visualize something and you won a Telly and an Emmy award for your 3D animation company, and then it's furniture design, and then it's racing car driving. And I think also so many of us are told, pick a lane, do one thing. Whereas you seem to have kicked that into the dust and said, you can do anything. Martina, where did that mindset come from? That actually it's perfectly, I can do what I want. It's perfectly fine if I want to go from furniture designer or award-winning 3D animations
business owner to racing car driver in my 50s. Hell yeah. Where's that come from? Because that's genuinely inspiring.
You know, I think the beginning of our lives are dictated by the expectations of our family. Especially my father was an accountant, so I ended up studying and getting a Master of Science in Accounting and working for those accounting firms. And then I realized that, you know, as I was in my later 20s and entering my 30s, you know what? It's not about them. It's about what I want to do with my life. And I think that's really important, is to really evaluate, is it really so important to please other people and your parents, or is it more important to be true to yourself? And so a lot of when I speak to youngsters, I say, you know what, anything's possible at any age. You don't have to decide right now, if you're 20 or 18, what you want to do for the rest of your life. Try something and then see if that really fits you. How are you supposed to know at 18 what you want to do?
Yeah.
So I love showing people, you know what, it's possible. You can change it. You're not stuck. Nothing's written in stone. It's, you know, you can rewrite the story, in other words.
Yeah. Wow. And that is so true. And I think one of the pivotal things that you say there is that you don't have to be pleasing other people or meeting up with other people's expectations of you. Not that this is kind of part of the same question, but not part of it. When you've made these bold choices, or, well, do you know, I might rephrase that. I'm saying these bold choices to you, it comes across that they were completely natural choices. Right, I've done that. I've got my Emmy. And now I'm going to be a racing car driver. And now I'm going to completely natural, but just going with the flow of what you want to do at that point. What's been the reaction of those around you? Have they been supportive? Have they been looking at you going, seriously? What's happened, and how have you? Yeah, let me ask that question. I've got a terrible habit of asking several questions.
No,
let me ask that one first.
It's fine. I think most people have been really amazed and inspired that, you know what, oh my gosh, she can do it, so maybe I can as well. And that was also part of the goal. I didn't realize when I decided to become a race car driver how inspirational it would be. The other month ago at the Long Beach Grand Prix, I speak for a charity organization called Racers Who Care to young children, 8 to 15. And afterwards they were like, Martina, can we have your autograph? And they wanted to sign this, that, and the other. And I just love the fact of giving back, you know, especially to little girls. And you know what, we're not defined. The car doesn't know whether you're a man or a woman. So you can do anything as a girl. And, you know, there are still some stereotypes, you know, in terms of boys like math and girls like art, and that really should no longer apply.
Yeah. Yes. And it's, again, another thing that came to mind is like not conforming to stereotypes. Because let's face it, if we would say draw a racing driver, picture a racing driver, Martina, it's not going to be you, is it? So for you to step forward into the arena and go, hi, is hugely inspiring. I love what you say there about speaking to children and young people, especially girls who might not be thinking of that as a career or a possibility or anything, to go, yeah, actually, look, as exactly as you say, if Martina has done it, then so can I. Martina, I want to backtrack just a little bit, because you mentioned visualization and how you've taken it from the kind of childish playing with your Barbies in war-torn Beirut to harnessing it as a really valuable technique in your adult life. Can you let us in on some of the secrets of how you do it and how you leverage it? Because we do hear a lot, you know, there's a lot in the lots of personal development learning online about visualization, and it's not as easy as you might imagine. So what are some of the core things that, if somebody's going to really leverage this and harness this, what are some of the key things that they should be doing?
You have to think about that it's actually happening. You go into your mind, and I'm walking on stage receiving the Telly Award. I'm getting on the podium and receiving the championship. it's literally like you're there, people are applauding, and it sounds silly, but really you can dream as big as you want in your mind. And I really encourage anyone to dream bigger than anyone would want you to. And so what you said before about how did other people react, there are certain countries like Sweden, England, Germany, where it's not that acceptable to be that successful or to show success. Whereas in America, I really believe in the system. It's one of the greatest countries in the world because the harder you work, the more you can achieve. And there are no societal boundaries keeping you down. So if you have a great idea and you're able to work hard, because nothing happens without hard work and dedication, you can't expect to realize those dreams without having an actual plan of getting there. So it's one thing to go on stage and be applauded, but there's so much sweat and hard, possibly pain and suffering that goes on. But it's that resilience that makes it so much more rewarding once you receive it, because you really worked hard and you earned it.
Yeah. Yes. And I'm glad you said that, because it's a massively valuable point, that this is kind of the difference, is it not, between merely daydreaming and visualization. Daydreaming, sitting there going, oh, wouldn't it be lovely, and then not doing anything about it. Visualization is fixating on that and then striving to move towards it. So in all of your in your kind of journey overall, how have you overcome challenges? What kind of mindset have you adopted to overcome trials and tribulations and challenges that you must have faced along the way?
Never give up. And so what I look at is, and two of my slogans are daring to be different and be you. So my inspiration doesn't just apply to, if you want to become a race car driver. It's just dare to be different. To take that path, because guess what? All the inventors that we benefit from, Thomas Edison, Isaac Newton, all those inventors, they just tried and failed so many times. And then after so and so many times, if they had given up, it's like that picture of a tunnel. The guy has his pickaxe, and he stops right before the treasure.
Yeah.
So never give up and really try and have a positive mindset. It's so important. Yeah. So getting back to the visualization, it's also important to find supportive people that you can tell your dream to. So I like to dream big, but then also have somebody, maybe it's not your family or older friends, who pinpoint you, categorize you, that won't support you, but a new group of, let's say, women or men, where you can express yourself freely and they say, what a great idea. Instead of maybe a family saying, don't be silly. Don't be silly. Why do you want the spotlight? You're a show off. You go to people and you surround yourself with people who are more successful than you are and have that work ethic. So you're a part of that company of becoming successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is exactly what the She Rises network is all about. She Rises, of course, are the initiators of FenixTV, where we sit right now. And just when you were talking about the inventors and so on, and how they dared, they were daring to be different, not giving up as well, but the daring to be different. You can imagine, like, for Thomas Edison, everybody had been using candles. Thomas Edison is inventing a light bulb, or these great inventors who have come up with something. Without a doubt, if you're the first person to do something, or you're breaking the mold, or you're charging ahead in a new direction, other people will be looking at you going, no, I don't know what that thing is that we've got candles. We're fine with our candles. And so oftentimes I think we are forging ahead with something new, and you will feel a bit exposed. So having that vision and that visualization of, nope, that's where I'm going. That's what an unwavering, that's your North Star, is without a doubt something that's going to that's going to be carrying you forward. And again, what you say about surrounding yourself with supportive people. And the flip side of that, which is perhaps, I'm not asking you to name and shame here, Martina, but to what extent have there been people who perhaps have been non-supportive or dismissive of your intentions and your goals? How have you managed them out of your life, or how have you managed them, full stop? Because that can be a tricky one if it's somebody who's a family member or who's close to you that and yet you don't want to have them pulling you down.
Yeah. So there have been not many people, but some people. And what I do is I think open and honest communication is really important. And just saying point blank, setting your boundaries, saying, I respect your opinion, but that's your opinion. Yeah. We have different ways of thinking about things, and I'd appreciate it when you're in my space that we agree to disagree.
Yeah.
And we just respect each other's choices. And it's a little bit difficult when you have, family members, but I think it's important to just say what it is. And in order to have a harmonious relationship, let's put our differences aside and think about things that we do have in common or that we can do together and smile about it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So certain subject areas are off limits. But it's something that a number of my guests have talked about, is this thing about setting your boundaries and sticking to it. Which, as you say, it can be difficult. It can be a tricky conversation. It can be a tricky conversation to have, and yet it's all about preserving that vision, isn't it? And just not allowing anybody to detract from your own journey forward.
One thing I wanted to mention is a lot of times as women, we assume the other person can read our mind. This goes for marriages or friendships.
That's true.
And so we can't read each other's minds. So whether it's a difference or not a difference, just speak up. And say, the other person might say, I didn't even think about that.
Yes.
I didn't think about that the music was playing too loud or that it was disturbing you. Or, we always have these thoughts in our minds, but rather than just let it spiral, just talk about it.
Talk about it. Yes. Yeah. Have the courage to have that conversation as well. Great point. Martina, again, you've been working your way through several successful careers, and here you are, racing driver, with all of these accolades already under your belt. How would you describe your true calling? What is it that underpins all of these things and drives you and calls you forward?
So inspiring other people through my two different businesses. Now I'm the CEO of DK Racing School, where we're here in California, and teach and private coach in the race car, which is so rewarding, especially when there's a woman, but both men and women. And then I also am a champion mindset coach for alpha women, and I do alpha women's extreme confidence mastermind retreats here in California. And seeing the change over the 3 nights of these women from being a cocoon to a butterfly, it makes me cry. On Sunday afternoons when we say goodbye, it's so wonderful to see the profound change. So I would say that my calling now at the age of 50, in my late 50s now, is to give back to other people and help them become successful and really applaud other people. I think there's not enough of that. I'm happy when other people succeed, and I feel like other people should be as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. And this when you say that you're working with younger people and sharing your experiences with them, it is that kind of passing the baton on to the next generation. Just as a final question, Martina, if there were, let's say, 2 or 3 really crucial pieces of advice about following your true calling, about being true to yourself, about moving forward boldly in the way that you have done, if you had 2 or 3 really crucial pieces of advice that you would give to anybody watching who is thinking about their true calling and wanting to find their way, or they found it and they want to move forward with more confidence, what would those key things be?
So it would be daring to be different, be you, and never give up. And the daring to be different is really important. It might not be a popular opinion when you're starting something, but if you truly believe in it and you believe in yourself, go for it. Why not change the world, right? Change does not happen without people like you who are willing to take a risk of something maybe not working. Yeah. But what if it does? What if it does? And if you don't ask, this is the other thing. Don't be afraid of asking, because if you don't ask, the answer is always no.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Martina. Dare to be different. Be you. Don't give up. Sage advice for all of us. Thank you for joining us, Martina. It's been an absolute joy to speak to you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Annabelle.
Some of the lessons that Martina has shared with us pass almost so quickly that we can miss them, which is why I want to stop and focus and invite you to do the same and really think about some of the things that she's shared with us here today. She says, I wanted to win an Emmy, and so I... And it's just that throwaway phrase, isn't it? I wanted to, and so I... That often, friends, is where it all starts. I wanted to, and so I did. And yet for many of us, we want to, and yet we talk ourselves out of it. We want to, and something gets in our way. We want to, and somebody tells us it's a bad idea. Martina is such a fantastic example of somebody who wanted to do many things and just did it. And also, racing car driver in your 50s? Here is a lady who is not accepting the boundaries that anybody else puts upon her. She's deciding to live life absolutely on her terms. And what a lesson that is to all of us. We can all decide. We can all decide who and what we want to be and follow our own true calling without recourse to everybody else's opinions as to what we should and could and might be doing. Some other really important things that Martina said that really spoke to me was the importance of setting aside the expectations of others and moving forward in the power of our own aspirations, and also surrounding ourselves with the right people. Sometimes that's not an easy thing to do, but surrounding ourselves with people who will help us to nurture our vision, nurture our true calling, and support us on the way forward. And above all, Martina is the poster girl for this, daring to be different. Daring to be different. It can take courage, and yet in that courage, Martina has found, and we can all find, our true calling. Friends, whatever you are doing today, choose to take steps in the direction of your own true calling.